The massive doors of the Grand Assembly Hall slid open with a sound like thunder rolling across mountains. Ambassador Marcus Webb stepped through, and for a moment his breath caught in his throat, despite years of diplomatic training. The chamber stretched before him like a cathedral built by gods. Crystalline walls soared 3 kilometers high, pulsing with veins of light that carried information across living neural pathways. Hundreds of platforms floated in perfect geometric patterns, each one holding a representative from a different world, a different species, a different civilization that had conquered the stars while humans were still learning to make fire. Marcus walked alone across the polished floor toward the central dais. His footsteps echoed in the vast silence. No guards accompanied him. No weapons hung at his side. Just one human in a simple black uniform, facing the accumulated power of 700 species who could exterminate his entire world with a casual vote above him. High Chancellor Vorn loomed on the highest platform. The Thelian leader's crystalline body refracted light into rainbow patterns. 4 eyes focused downward with an intensity that made Marcus feel like an insect under a magnifying glass. The Thelians had ruled the council for 6,000 years. Their technology was so advanced, it seemed like magic. Their judgment was considered final and absolute. Marcus stopped at the center mark and waited. Around him, alien beings of every imaginable shape watched with expressions he could only guess at. Some had eyes. Some had sensor organs he couldn't identify. Some seemed to perceive reality in ways his human brain couldn't comprehend. All of them were judging him. Vorn's voice resonated through translation, devices in 700 languages simultaneously. The human colony on Refuge Prime was established in violation of treaty sectors. When the Krell sovereignty exercised their legal right to remove the intrusion, your species responded with unprecedented violence. 12 Krell warships were destroyed. Thousands of their warriors are now your prisoners. You stand accused of aggression against a Sovereign Council member. The words hung in the air like an executioner's blade. Marcus kept his face perfectly calm, but his hands clasped tighter behind his back. He had known this moment would come. Everything humanity had worked for over the past 4 decades led to this confrontation. The Council has reviewed all evidence, Vorn continued. His translator carried something that might have been satisfaction. We find humanity guilty. Category 5 sanctions will be imposed. Your homeworld will be quarantined. Your colonies will be dissolved. Your species will be isolated until you learn to respect galactic law. A murmur rippled through the assembled delegates. Category 5 sanctions meant slow extinction. Cut off from galactic trade, from resources, from technology, humanity's scattered colonies would wither and die. Earth itself would become a prison planet, watching the stars but never reaching them again. Marcus finally spoke. His voice was quiet, but somehow it carried to every corner of that enormous chamber. May I present evidence in our defense, Chancellor? Vorn's crystalline plates shifted in what his species used as laughter. You may waste our time if you wish, human. The verdict is already decided. Thank you. Marcus touched the device at his wrist. The air above the central dais shimmered, and a holographic image appeared. A peaceful settlement. Golden fields surrounding simple buildings. Children playing in gardens. Refuge Prime, 18 months ago, Marcus said. 5,000 colonists, families, scientists, teachers. They filed proper settlement, claims through 12 different databases. Every record showed the planet as unclaimed territory. Records can be incorrect, Vorn interrupted. The Krell have controlled that sector for 4 centuries. Then perhaps they should update their territorial registries more often. Marcus's tone remained calm, but several delegates shifted uncomfortably at the implication. But let's move past the legal arguments. Let's talk about what actually happened when the Krell fleet arrived. The hologram changed. Massive warships descended through atmosphere, weapon ports already glowing with deadly energy. No warning. No communication. Just immediate attack. The Krell didn't send a message. Didn't demand evacuation. Didn't offer any terms at all. Marcus's voice stayed steady, but his eyes burned with controlled fury. They simply opened fire on civilian targets. On homes. On schools. On the medical center where doctors were treating sick children. Now the hologram showed bodies. Small bodies. The chamber fell into absolute silence. 4,312 people died in the first 30 minutes, Marcus continued. Men, women, children. The colony had no military defenses. No shields. Just a handful of tools meant for wildlife protection. They were farmers and researchers, not soldiers. This is regrettable, Warren said, though his tone suggested otherwise. But it does not excuse your retaliation. The Krell acted within their perceived rights. Did they? Marcus touched his wrist device again. The hologram shifted to show a different scene. A massive Krell warship floating in space, its hull marked with military insignia. This is the Dreadclaw, flagship of Battle Commander Thrax. Do you know what weapons it carries, Chancellor? Vorn didn't answer. Thermal cluster bombs, Marcus said. Weapons designed to generate temperatures exceeding 4,000 degrees across a 10-kilometer radius. Weapons banned by your own warfare accords for use against civilian populations. His voice dropped to barely a whisper, which somehow made it more terrible. They used 6 of them on Refuge Prime, not because they needed to, not because our people were fighting back, but because they wanted to ensure nothing survived, not even the trees. The hologram showed scorched wasteland where fertile fields had been, twisted metal where homes had stood, a blackened crater where a school had taught children about the stars. 688 people survived the initial bombardment, Marcus said. They hid in underground storage facilities, listening to the world burn above them. And then the Krell landed ground forces. Not to secure territory, not to enforce their claim, but to hunt down every single survivor. To finish the job. Another image appeared. Krell warriors in crimson armor, firing weapons into dark tunnels where terrified civilians cowered. That's when the Pathfinder arrived, Marcus said softly. A new ship appeared in the hologram. Smaller than the Krell vessels, sleeker, built for speed rather than destruction. The Pathfinder is a diplomatic courier. Crew of 43. No capital weapons. No Marines. Just diplomats and scientists who heard the distress call and came to help. Vorn leaned forward. A courier ship destroyed 12 Krell warships? Impossible. You're absolutely right, Chancellor. It is impossible. Marcus's smile held no warmth. Which is why the Pathfinder didn't destroy them. My people did. The chamber erupted in confusion. Delegates chittered, hummed, and bellowed in their various languages. Marcus waited patiently for silence. What the Krell didn't know, he continued, what none of you knew, is that Refuge Prime wasn't just a farming colony. It was also a research station. Specifically, it was studying something my species has become exceptionally good at throughout our violent history. He paused, letting the weight settle. We were learning how to kill things that are stronger than us. The hologram shifted to technical schematics. Several military advisors in the assembly leaned forward with sudden interest. Humans are weak, Chancellor, Marcus said. We know this. Physically, we rank near the bottom of spacefaring species. We can't breathe exotic atmospheres. We can't survive in vacuum. We can't regenerate like some species can. We're fragile and limited. His eyes swept across the assembly. But we're very creative about compensating for our weaknesses. What did you do? Vorn's voice had lost its confidence. We gave them a choice. Marcus brought up new footage. Space combat, but not the kind anyone expected. Krell warships weren't exploding. They were simply stopping, drifting, their lights going dark one by one. When the Pathfinder's captain made contact with the Krell fleet, she offered them one chance to withdraw peacefully. Battle Commander Thrax laughed. He told her that humans were prey, pretending to be predators, and that he would enjoy adding her ship to his kill count. The footage showed human teams in simple environment suits cutting through the hulls of disabled warships. The captain activated a device our researchers had developed. We call it an electromagnetic pulse. It generates a massive burst of electromagnetic radiation that disables unshielded electronics. Marcus watched the Council's reaction with grim satisfaction. The Krell, like most species who have enjoyed technological superiority for centuries, never bothered hardening their systems against such primitive attacks. Why would they? The implications crashed through the assembly like a wave. If humans could disable advanced warships with simple technology, what did that mean for everyone's military superiority? 12 ships, 40,000 Krell warriors, all of them now prisoners, unharmed, waiting for proper legal proceedings. Marcus's voice dropped to a whisper. Not one human casualty during the engagement. Not one. The silence was absolute. So let me be very clear about what happened at Refuge Prime. Marcus stepped forward, and despite being smaller than most delegates, he suddenly seemed to fill the room. The Krell didn't just attack a colony. They committed genocide with banned weapons against defenseless civilians. They massacred children. And when we defended ourselves using minimal force and zero lethal casualties, you called us here to punish us for aggression. Thorn's crystalline form had gone pale. You're threatening the Council? No, Chancellor. I'm educating you. Marcus pulled up a final image. A star chart showing Earth's solar system with expanding circles radiating outward. We have 247 colonies now. Most of them unlisted in your databases, because we learned early that your bureaucracy wasn't designed to accommodate newcomers who actually challenged the established order. The circles expanded, covering more of known space. Each colony has about 20,000 people. Each one is researching different aspects of asymmetric warfare. Each one is preparing for the day when species like the Krell decide humans are convenient targets. The circles had covered half the galaxy. You can try to stop us, Marcus said quietly. You can enforce your sanctions, send your fleets, attempt to quarantine Earth. But I want you to understand something fundamental about humanity. He looked directly at Vorn. We don't surrender. We don't accept defeat. We adapt. We overcome. We survive. And when someone tries to exterminate us, when they murder our children and burn our homes, we don't just fight back. We make absolutely certain it never happens again. Private chambers of the Council's inner sanctum had never been built for panic, but panic filled them now. 12 of the galaxy's most powerful leaders occupied their designated gravity wells, their various forms of communication, creating chaos that would have been incomprehensible to most species. But every one of them understood fear perfectly. He was bluffing. Battle Director Kron of the Vraxis hegemony slammed 3 of his 6 arms against his control panel. The Vraxis had conquered 40 systems through pure military might. Their warrior culture dominated entire sectors. 247 colonies? We had surveillance networks covering every habitable world. We would have detected them. Would we? Counselor Vesha of the Mindari Collectives spoke through neural interfaces that translated pure thought into sound. Her species communicated through shared consciousness, making deception nearly impossible among themselves. It made them exceptionally good at detecting lies in others. I scanned the human during his testimony. He believed every word. High Chancellor Vorn's crystalline form had dulled to sick gray, a sign of deep distress among Thelians. Belief doesn't equal truth. Humans are known for self-deception, for convincing themselves of comfortable lies. Comfortable? Ambassador Ralph of the Krev Federation emerged from his photosynthetic trance. His plant-based biology quivered with agitation. Nothing about that human suggested comfort. He came expecting condemnation, expecting sanctions. And he didn't care, because he knows something we don't. Science Overseer Quillix of the Harmon Technocracy brought up holographic data, his tentacles dancing across multiple interfaces. I've reviewed the technical specifications of this electromagnetic pulse weapon. The principle is crude, almost embarrassingly simple. That's what makes it terrifying. Explain, Vorn commanded. Quillix expanded the hologram, showing cascade effects of electromagnetic disruption striking shielded systems. Our defensive technologies stop energy weapons, kinetic projectiles, even exotic matter attacks. But they're all electronic systems. All of them run on circuitry vulnerable to electromagnetic interference. The humans didn't invent something new. They weaponized a principle we've known about for millennia, but never defended against, because we assumed no one would be primitive enough to use it. So we upgrade our shielding, Kron growled. Harden our systems. Problem solved. In how long? Vesha's thought voice cut through the discussion like a blade. Retrofitting every military vessel in the galaxy? 5 years? 10? And that assumes the humans don't have other surprises. Remember, that research colony was studying asymmetric warfare. The electromagnetic pulse is just what they've shown us. Vorn felt control slipping away. 6,000 years of Thelian leadership, and it was a species barely 1 century into space travel that threatened to unravel everything. We need intelligence. Real intelligence. I want surveillance increased on every known human world. I want their communications intercepted. I want to know what they're planning. Already tried. A new voice interrupted. The chamber's security door opened, admitting someone who technically shouldn't have access to inner sanctum meetings, but no one stopped her. Operative Director Vex of the Shadow Commission headed the Council's most classified intelligence network. Her species, the Colics, were masters of espionage. Their biology allowed them to infiltrate any environment. She moved with liquid grace to an empty gravity well, her form shifting colors to match ambient light. We've had operatives attempting to penetrate human information networks since they joined the galactic community. Success rate is 0.3%. Impossible, Kron objected. Your people can crack any system. Any system built on logical architecture, yes. But human computer security isn't entirely logical. They use something called social engineering, exploiting emotional and psychological factors rather than technical vulnerabilities. They assume their systems will be compromised, so they design multiple layers of deception, false data, trap programs, deliberate misinformation. Our best agents have literally gone insane trying to determine what's real and what's planted. Vex brought up her own holographic display, showing a web of human colony locations. But we have confirmed at least 47 colonies beyond the 17 officially registered. Most are in disputed territories or unclaimed systems. And here's what concerns me most. She highlighted several locations in deep space, far from any known trade routes. These colonies aren't near resources. They're not positioned for strategic advantage. They're positioned for isolation, for secrecy. Research facilities, Quillix breathed. Like Refuge Prime. Exactly. Which means the electromagnetic pulse might be the least of our concerns. Humans have spent their entire history fighting each other with increasingly creative methods of destruction. Now they're united. They're in space. And they're surrounded by species they perceive as threats. Vex's colors shifted to warning patterns. What do you think they're inventing in those hidden colonies? The chamber fell silent as implications settled over them like a burial shroud. Ambassador Ralph spoke, his voice rustling like leaves. We have another problem. The Krell. What about them? Vorn asked, though he already knew. Battle Commander Thrax and 40,000 warriors are prisoners on a human courier ship with a crew of 43. The Krell sovereignty is demanding immediate release. They're calling it an act of war. They're mobilizing their entire fleet, 3,000 warships. And they're demanding the Council authorize a retaliatory strike against Earth itself. Absolutely not, Esha projected forcefully. That would be genocidal. The Krell don't care. Kron's warrior culture gave him insight into Krell thinking. They view warrior capture as ultimate humiliation, worse than death. They won't stop until they've restored honor through blood. Vex's color shifted to deep purple, expressing grave concern. Intelligence suggests the Krell fleet will move with or without Council authorization. They're planning to jump to Earth's system in 48 hours. Then we stop them, Vorn declared. We position Council forces between them and Earth. We enforce peace. With what legal justification? Quillix asked. The Krell have a legitimate claim. Their warriors were captured, their ships seized. Under galactic law, they have rights to proportional response. Nothing proportional about 3,000 warships against one planet, Ralph objected. War is rarely proportional, Kron noted grimly. But Quillix is right. If we move against the Krell, we set precedent that the Council can override member sovereignty. That's dangerous. Vorn's mind raced through scenarios, each worse than the last. Sanction humanity and allow Krell attack meant complicity in genocide. Defend humanity meant fracturing the Council. Do nothing and watch chaos unfold. What would the humans do? He asked suddenly. The question caught everyone off guard. What? Kron asked. If 3,000 Krell warships arrive at Earth, what would humans do? Surrender? Evacuate? He stopped, seeing Vex's expression. You know what they'll do. The intelligence operative's colors shifted through several spectrums before settling on resigned gray-blue. I have one deep cover agent embedded in Earth's military command. She sent a single message before going silent 12 hours ago. Vex played the recording. A female voice speaking English with transla. Tie-in overlay said, if the Krell come, they will discover what happens when you awaken sleeping monsters. Earth is not defenseless. Earth is a trap. God help us all, a trap? Vorn's crystalline plates rattled. What kind of trap? Unknown. My agent hasn't responded to contact attempts. Either she's been discovered, or she's been forbidden from revealing what she learned. Even to us. Desha's mental voice resonated with realization. The human ambassador wasn't here to plead for mercy. He was delivering a warning. Warning about what? Ralph's leaves rustled nervously. What could they possibly have that threatens 3,000 ships? Quillix was reviewing data frantically, tentacles moving in blur. I've been analyzing Earth's energy signatures over the past decade. There are anomalies. Massive power draws in specific locations around their planet and in orbital space. Far more than needed for civilian infrastructure. And they're increasing exponentially. Weapons platforms? Kron suggested. Maybe, or something else entirely. Humans think differently. They don't fight like us. They don't build like us. Quillix paused in sudden revelation. They're not preparing to defend Earth. They're preparing to make attacking Earth so costly that no one dares try. Mutually assured destruction, Vex said quietly. A human concept from their pre-space era. If you can't prevent attack, you make consequences so severe that attack becomes unthinkable. Vorn stood suddenly, his full 3-meter height imposing. Then we have no choice. We must stop the Krell fleet before it reaches Earth. The Krell won't listen, Kron pointed out. Their honor culture doesn't allow retreat once committed to battle. Then we don't ask for retreat. We give them what they want, Vorn turned to Vex. Contact Ambassador Webb. Tell him the Council offers compromise. Krell prisoners released to neutral custody pending tribunal. In exchange, the Krell stand down. We buy time for peaceful resolution. And if he refuses? Desha asked. Then we discover what happens when 3,000 warships attack a planet full of sleeping monsters, Vorn said grimly. And we pray whatever the humans prepared doesn't destroy us all. Vex was moving toward communication systems when every screen suddenly went dark. Then they all illuminated with the same image. Ambassador Marcus Webb, sitting calmly in what appeared to be his quarters. "Good evening, counselors," he said pleasantly. "I hope you don't mind the intrusion. Your security is impressive, but we needed to ensure you received this message promptly." Vorn felt genuine terror. "You're monitoring our private channels?" "We're monitoring everything, Chancellor. Every communication. Every fleet movement. Every whispered conversation in rooms you believe secure." Webb's slight smile was unmistakable. "Did you really think a species that survived its own nuclear age would enter the galactic community without learning intelligence gathering first? We know about the Krell fleet. We know your proposed compromise. I'm here to save you the trouble. You'll release the prisoners?" Ralph asked hopefully. "No, we'll keep them safe until proper investigation of their war crimes. But we will offer the Krell an alternative." Webb leaned forward. "Tell Battle Commander Thrax we'll return every warrior unharmed if they agree to 3 conditions. First, acknowledge their attack violated warfare accords. Second, pay reparations to victim families. Third, submit to independent arbitration of territorial disputes instead of military action." "They'll never agree," Kron stated. "Too much dishonor. Then they'll attack Earth and learn the same lesson we taught at Refuge Prime, that sometimes the greatest dishonor is choosing pride over wisdom." Webb's expression hardened. "But I want clarity, counselors. If those 3,000 ships enter our solar system with hostile intent, we will defend ourselves. And when we do, the galaxy will learn exactly what humanity becomes when we stop trying to be civilized." "You're threatening genocide," Vorn accused. "No, Chancellor. I'm preventing it. Because if the Krell come, they won't all leave. Most won't leave. And survivors will carry back a message echoing across every system, every species, every corner of this galaxy." Webb stood. "Humanity is not prey. We're the predators you never saw coming." The screens went dark. The Krell armada emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system in a display of military precision that would have made any tactician weep. 3,000 warships arranged in perfect formations, their plasma weapons already charging for immediate combat. Supreme War Leader Drax stood on the command deck of his flagship, the Eternal Vengeance. His crimson scales gleamed under harsh combat lighting. Around him, senior commanders monitored tactical displays with the focused intensity of a warrior race that had never known defeat. "Energy signatures?" Drax demanded, his voice carrying the characteristic growl of his species. "Multiple sources detected throughout the system, Supreme Leader." Tactical Officer Vin gestured at holographic display. "But they're strange. Elaborate." "The inner planets show normal settlement patterns. But the outer system is saturated with power signatures. Thousands of them. Too small for military installations, too numerous for civilian infrastructure." Vin magnified the display. "And they're moving, adjusting positions. Like they're surrounding us. Weapons status?" Drax's warrior instincts screamed warnings. "All ships ready, Supreme Leader." plasma cannons at full charge, missile batteries armed. We can reduce their planet to cinder within the hour. Then why haven't they responded? Drax's tail lashed in agitation. Where are their defensive fleets? Their warnings? Their surrender offers? As if in answer, a transmission burst across all frequencies. Every screen in the Krell fleet displayed the same image. A human woman in dark blue military uniform, hair pulled back severely, expression utterly devoid of emotion. Behind her, a military command center bustled with activity. I am General Patricia Okonkwo, Supreme Commander of Earth's Unified Defense Forces. You have entered our solar system with hostile intent. You have one opportunity to withdraw peacefully. If you decline, you will be destroyed. Drax's roar of laughter echoed through the command deck. One opportunity? They offer us mercy? Send response. The communications officer complied. Drax leaned into the pickup. Human General. I am Supreme War Leader Drax of the Krell Sovereignty. We have come to reclaim our warriors and exact vengeance for your unprovoked attack. Surrender immediately, or we demonstrate why the Krell are feared throughout the galaxy. General Okonkwo's expression didn't change. Let me understand your position, War Leader. You attack our colony. Murder 5,000 civilians, including children. Deploy banned weapons against non-combatants. We defend ourselves, capture your forces without killing them, and you call that unprovoked attack? You took our warriors prisoner. That is dishonor beyond measure. We gave them mercy you denied our colonists. We kept them alive. Okonkwo leaned forward slightly. But if you insist on this course, let me explain what happens next. Those power signatures your tacticians are analyzing? Those are kinetic weapons platforms. Approximately 8,000 of them positioned throughout the outer system. Vin was already confirming data. Supreme Leader, she's correct. Signatures consistent with mass driver technology. But deploying that many platforms would take decades. We've been building them for 43 years, Okonkwo continued. Since the day we joined the galactic community and realized we were surrounded by species who could exterminate us on a whim. Each platform contains a tungsten rod approximately 9 meters long and half a meter in diameter. Simple, cheap, powered by nothing more exotic than gravity and momentum. Drax felt cold sensation in his gut that no Krell warrior should experience. The first whisper of doubt. Kinetic weapons are primitive. Our shields will stop them. Your shields stop energy weapons and explosive projectiles. They're quite good at it. But they're not designed to stop solid tungsten rods moving at significant fractions of light speed. Okonkwo's voice remained clinically calm. Each rod carries approximately the kinetic energy of a small nuclear weapon. We have 8,000 targeted at your fleet. Do the math. Tactical Officer Vin was doing exactly that, claws moving frantically. Supreme Leader, if her numbers are accurate, we cannot defend against simultaneous strikes from multiple angles. Our shields are rectional. They cannot cover all vectors at once when facing that many projectiles. Then why haven't you fired? Drax challenged. If you have such overwhelming superiority, why negotiate? Because we don't want to kill you. For the first time, emotion crept into Okonkwo's voice. Frustration. We didn't want to kill your warriors at Refuge Prime. We didn't want this confrontation. We just want to be left alone to build our civilization without you. Deciding our lives are worth less than your territorial pride. You hold our warriors prisoner. We hold war criminals. In custody pending investigation. And before you declare that unacceptable dishonor, remember we have evidence of them using banned weapons against children. Okonkwo's voice rose. Your choices are simple, War Leader. Withdraw now, agree to arbitration, get your warriors back safely. Or attack and learn what happens when you mistake patience for weakness. Drax looked at his senior commanders. Their expressions ranged from eager bloodlust to carefully concealed concern. Traditional Krell wisdom said retreat was death to honor, that warriors who fled battle might as well not exist. But traditional wisdom developed fighting other honor-bound species. Not these deceptive humans who'd apparently spent 4 decades preparing a trap. Your weapons are untested in actual combat, Drax pointed out. Simulations are not reality. True, Okonkwo acknowledged, which is why we prefer not to test them on 3,000 ships full of living beings. But make no mistake, War Leader. We will test them if you force our hand. We've already accepted we might have to kill you all. We've made peace with that. Have you made yours? Before Drax could respond, his communications officer interrupted. Supreme Leader, transmission from the Galactic Council. High Chancellor Vorn himself. The screen split, showing both Okonkwo and the crystalline Thelian leader. Vorn looked worse than Drax had ever seen him, his usually luminous form dim and flickering. War Leader Drax, you must stand down immediately. This is not a request. It's an order from the Council. The Council has no authority to interfere in matters of honor. The Council has every authority. Vorn's voice cracked with strain. We've received intelligence reports from deep space monitoring networks. The humans weren't bluffing about weapon platforms. We've confirmed at least 7,000 discrete signatures. And that's not all. A data package downloaded to the Eternal Vengeance's systems. Drax opened it and felt his blood run cold. The package contained footage from human security networks, deliberately leaked, showing construction and testing of kinetic platforms. But more than that, it showed other weapons. Antimatter mines scattered through the outer system. Biological agents designed specifically to target Krell physiology. Viral programs that could infiltrate Krell computer systems. They've been preparing for this exact scenario, Vorn continued. Not just preparing to defend against your fleet, but ensuring that if you attack Earth, you unleash consequences reaching all the way to Krell home space. They've infiltrated your information networks, War Leader. They know coordinates of your colony worlds, your military installations, your civilian population centers. Impossible, Drax breathed. Our security protocols are impenetrable. They're designed to stop Krell thinking, General Okonkwo interjected. Not human thinking. For 10 years, we've had operatives moving through your territory, not as warriors or spies, but as traders, merchants, researchers. People you never noticed because you never considered them threats. They've mapped every important location in Krell space. And if you attack Earth, automated systems will deploy weapons against those locations. You won't just lose your fleet, War Leader. You'll lose everything. Drax wanted to dismiss it as bluff, but the evidence was there, laid out in meticulous detail. The humans had planned this not for months or years, but for decades. They'd entered the galactic community with smiles and extended hands, while simultaneously preparing for the day those hands would need to hold weapons. This is dishonorable, he managed. Dishonorable? Okonkwo's laugh was sharp and bitter. You murdered 5,000 civilians, including children, and you dare talk about honor? Let me tell you about honor, War Leader. Honor is keeping your word. Honor is protecting the innocent. Honor is having strength to choose peace when war would be easier. What you call honor is just pride dressed up in philosophy. The Krell do not retreat. Then the Krell die. Okonkwo's voice went flat. And frankly, I'm tired of trying to save you from yourselves. You have 10 minutes to begin withdrawal. If any ship charges weapons, if any vessel moves into attack formation, if we detect any hostile action whatsoever, we fire. All platforms. All targets. Simultaneously. You'll be dead before you realize we've attacked. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened 6 hours after the Krell fleet's withdrawal. Unlike the orderly assembly of days before, this gathering hummed with barely contained chaos. Representatives from 700 species shouted, hissed, clicked, and broadcast their objections in cacophony that translation matrices struggled to process. Ambassador Marcus Webb stood at the central dais again, but this time he wasn't alone. General Okonkwo flanked his right side, military uniform stark contrast to his diplomatic blacks. On his left stood someone the Council hadn't expected, Dr. Amira Sato, Director of Humanity's Long-Range Research Initiative. Her presence sent ripples of unease through the chamber. Everyone knew long-range research was humanity's euphemism for weapons development. High Chancellor Vorn brought the chamber to order with a pulse of crystalline sound that cut through noise like a blade. This emergency session addresses 3 critical issues. First, the legality of Earth's defensive preparations. Second, the status of Krell prisoners. And third, the systematic infiltration of Council security networks by human intelligence operatives. Marcus didn't flinch. Shall we address them in order, Chancellor? Or would you prefer I save everyone time and admit to all 3 simultaneously? The blunt acknowledgement stunned the chamber into silence. You admit to espionage against the Council itself? Councillor Vesh's mental voice carried waves of betrayal. We welcomed you as members. We shared technology, knowledge, trust. You welcomed us as curiosities, Marcus corrected, his voice sharp. As primitives you could mold into compliant junior partners grateful for scraps from your table. And yes, we smiled and nodded and said thank you while simultaneously making sure we'd never be dependent on your goodwill for survival. Battle Director Kron surged forward in his gravity well. This is precisely the duplicitous behavior we should expect from predators. The Vraxis hegemony moved for immediate expulsion of humanity from the Council and total quarantine of their space. Seconded came voices from a dozen different species. Denied, Vorn said firmly, surprising everyone. Before we vote, we will hear full testimony. Ambassador Webb, explain yourself. Marcus glanced at General Okonkwo, who gave a slight nod. 43 years ago, Earth made first contact with the Zelfani expedition. They were polite, welcoming, genuinely interested in cultural exchange. We were ecstatic. First contact with advanced civilization meant everything we dreamed about for centuries. He pulled up holographic display showing that first contact event. A sleek Zelfani vessel hovering over ruins of old New York, humans gathering in wonder below. The Zelfani representatives stayed 3 months. They taught us about the galactic community, about the Council, about our place in the larger universe. And they explained, very carefully, very diplomatically, that humanity was weak, that our technology was primitive, that our biology was fragile, that our survival depended entirely on goodwill of more powerful neighbors. The hologram shifted to show Council chamber recordings from humanity's initial membership petition. Marcus's voice took on bitter edge. We watched these recordings later. Do you know what we saw? We saw 700 species looking at us the way humans look at puppies. Cute, harmless, something to be protected or pitied, but never respected, never feared. Is respect only earned through fear? Ambassador Ralph asked, his leaves rustling with genuine confusion. In a galaxy where might makes right? Yes. Marcus let that hang for a moment. Look at the Council's own structure. The most powerful species hold the most sway. The Thelian Concordat has led for 6,000 years, not because of moral superiority, but because no one can challenge their technological dominance. The Vraxis hegemony has permanent seats because their military might is undeniable. Even the Mindari Collective's influence stems from their ability to coordinate vast populations telepathically. Dr. Sato spoke for the first time, her voice clinical and precise. We analyzed every major council decision for the past millennium. 93% favored species with significant military or economic power. The remaining 7% were concessions designed to maintain illusion of fairness while preventing smaller species from unifying against major powers. That's gross oversimplification. Quillix objected, his tentacles writhing with agitation. Is it? Marcus pulled up more data. Show me one instance where a weak species successfully challenged a strong one through council mediation alone. Show me one case where the council enforced justice against a major power without overwhelming consensus or threat of coalition warfare. The silence that followed was damning. We realized quickly. Marcus continued that the council's vaunted justice system only works when all parties agree to abide by it. And powerful species only agree when it serves their interests or when they fear consequences of defiance. Since humanity had no power to make anyone fear consequences, we had two choices. Accept second-class citizenship forever, or build power of our own. By deceiving us, Vorn stated flatly. By infiltrating our systems while smiling to our faces. By doing exactly what any of you would do in our position. General Okonkwo step. D forward. You want to talk about deception, Chancellor? Let's talk about how the Council forgot to mention that 70% of unclaimed space in your databases is actually contested territory between major powers who use proxy conflicts to settle disputes. Or how about the fact that technology sharing programs you offered were all deliberately outdated, ensuring we'd remain dependent on Council trade for essential components? Operative Director Vex materialized from shadows, her form settling on neutral gray. General, your allegations are serious accusations without proof. Documented in your own classified files, Okonkwo interrupted, which we've had access to for 8 years. Did you really think your encryption would stop a species that built quantum computers before we had faster-than-light travel? The chamber erupted again. This time Vorn couldn't restore order immediately. The revelation that humanity had penetrated Council security to that depth was too shocking, too threatening to established order. When noise finally subsided, Councillor Vesha spoke, her mental voice carefully controlled. You've made your point. You're not as helpless as we assumed. But that doesn't justify turning yourselves into the very threat you claim to fear. Those kinetic platforms around Earth send a message to other developing species. You've given every emerging civilization a roadmap for resisting Council authority. Good, Marcus said simply. The word landed like physical blow. Good? Kron roared. You advocate for chaos? For dissolution of order that has maintained galactic peace for millennia? I advocate for a system where peace isn't maintained through implicit threat that powerful species can destroy, weaker ones with impunity. Marcus's eyes blazed with conviction. Your galactic peace is built on assumption that species like the Krell can attack colonies without consequence as long as they're attacking someone too weak to fight back. That's not peace. That's oppression with good public relations. Dr. Sato brought up new displays, showing mathematical models and projections. We've run simulations of what happens when defensive technology becomes accessible to all species, not just major powers. Yes, there's initial instability, but long-term trends show dramatic decrease in aggressive warfare because cost-benefit ratio shifts. When everyone can hurt everyone else, diplomacy becomes the only rational choice. Mutually assured destruction, Vex said quietly. The same principle that prevented nuclear war on Earth. Exactly. And it worked. Humanity went from brink of self-annihilation to unified global governance within a century of developing nuclear weapons. The threat of mutual destruction forced us to find better ways of resolving conflicts. Or it just delayed your extinction, Kron countered. You're assuming other species will react as rationally as humans claim they did. We're not assuming anything, General Okonkwo replied. We're preparing for every possibility. Which is why we're not just building weapons. We're building a new framework for galactic security. She brought up complex diagrams showing interlocking systems and protocols. The Krell fleet faced kinetic platforms because kinetic weapons are simple, cheap, and impossible to claim as offensive since they're just controlled gravity. But that's entry-level deterrent. What we're really building is distributed defense network that any species can contribute to and benefit from. Explain, Vorn commanded. His crystalline form flickering with intense interest. Dr. Sato took over. Imagine a mutual defense pact based on technology sharing rather than military alliances. Species contribute defensive innovations to common database. In return, they get access to everyone else's contributions. A small species with clever sensor technology becomes as valuable as large species with advanced shielding. Power becomes decentralized. The major powers would never agree, Ralph objected, though his leaves rustled with something that might have been hope. You're asking the strong to voluntarily give up their advantage. No, we're offering them a way to maintain security without endless cost of arms races and subjugation. Marcus pulled up economic data. The Thelian Concordat spends 30% of its budget on military development and maintenance. The Vraxis hegemony, 42%. That's resources that could be used for research, development, improving quality of life. But you can't reduce spending because you need to maintain dominance over potential rivals. The 12 hours passed like slow torture for everyone involved. In the Council's private deliberation chambers, 700 species argued themselves into deadlock 3 times before Operative Director Vex did something unprecedented. She released classified intelligence to the full Council. Not summaries or sanitized reports, but raw data showing exactly how deeply humanity had penetrated galactic security systems. The reaction was predictable chaos. But within that chaos, patterns emerged that would reshape galactic civilization. Smaller species, those who'd spent millennia under implicit threat from more powerful neighbors, began forming coalitions. The revelation that humanity had developed asymmetric defenses gave them hope that they too might escape perpetual vulnerability. Within hours, 17 species had formally requested technical consultations with Earth's defensive research programs. The major powers fractured along predictable lines. The Krell sovereignty, humiliated by their fleet's withdrawal, demanded humanity's complete disarmament and immediate release of their prisoners to Krell custody. The Vraxis hegemony, seeing opportunity in chaos, proposed dividing humanity's defensive technologies among the Council's military powers to prevent destabilization. But the Thelian Concordat surprised everyone. High Chancellor Vorn convened an emergency session with only the Council's founding species, the 5 civilizations that had established galactic governance 6,000 years ago. What happened in that meeting remained classified, but when Vorn emerged, his crystalline form had shifted to deep contemplative blue that his species used to signal fundamental paradigm shifts. When the full Council reconvened, the chamber was different. The casual arrogance that had defined galactic politics for millennia had been replaced by something that looked almost like fear, but also, in some faces, hope. Vorn began without preamble. The founding species have reached consensus. We are declaring a Reformation protocol. Gasps and clicks of shock rippled through assembly. Reformation protocols had only been invoked twice in galactic history, both times after wars that threatened to destroy civilization itself. What humanity has demonstrated, Vorm continued, is not merely a shift in military capability, but a fundamental challenge to assumptions upon which the Council operates. We have maintained order through hierarchy of power, assuming that strength and longevity equate to wisdom and justice. Ambassador Webb has forced us to confront an uncomfortable truth, that our system has perpetuated security for the strong at expense of the weak. Kron surged forward. You cannot be serious. One species tricks us, infiltrates us, threatens us, and you respond by validating their actions? No, Battle Director. We respond by acknowledging that a system requiring deception for survival is a system that has failed. Vorn's form pulsed with resolve. The Reformation Protocol establishes 3 fundamental changes to galactic governance. The holographic display activated, showing constitutional amendments that made several species recoil in shock. First, the Council will immediately begin developing and distributing defensive technologies to all member species, regardless of size or economic power. Not as charity, but as a right of membership. Security will no longer be privilege of the strong. Madness, Kron bellowed. You'll arm every unstable species in the galaxy. We'll ensure every species can defend itself, Vorn corrected. There's a difference. Which brings us to second change. All offensive military technologies and tactics will be subject to mandatory Council review and registration. Species may maintain defensive forces, but offensive capabilities require justification and oversight. Your neutering military power, the Vraxis representative's translator could barely keep up with his rage. This is surrender to chaos. This is evolution toward actual peace rather than enforced submission, Vorn replied. And third, the Council structure itself will be reformed. Voting power will no longer be determined primarily by technological advancement or economic output, but by complex formula that includes population, territory, technological contribution, and diplomatic engagement. Smaller species will have genuine representation. The chamber exploded. Half the representatives shouted approval. The other half screamed objections. Marcus Webb stood silent at center of it all, his expression carefully neutral. But General Okonkwo noticed his hands trembling slightly. This is because of them. Kron pointed accusingly at the human delegation. You're reshaping the entire galactic order because one species threatened you. No, Battle Director. Desha's mental voice cut through chaos like crystal clarity. We're reshaping the order because one species showed us it was already broken. Humanity didn't create these problems. They just forced us to. Oh, see them. The Mindari Collective representative floated forward, her telepathic presence radiating calm determination. I have been in mental contact with representatives from 47 smaller species. They have lived in fear for generations. Fear of territorial disputes, fear of economic exploitation, fear of cultural domination by more powerful neighbors. Humanity's example has given them hope. We can either embrace that hope and channel it constructively, or we can try to suppress it and watch it explode into genuine chaos. The Mindari Collective supports the Reformation Protocol, she concluded, as do the Thelian Concordat, the Harmon Technocracy, and the Krev Federation. That is 4 of 5 founding species. The vote is called. The final founding species, the enigmatic void dwellers who rarely participated in council affairs, signaled their ascent through a pulse of gravitational waves that every species felt rather than heard. The Reformation Protocol is enacted, Vorn declared. Species may object, may withdraw from the council if they choose. But the changes will proceed. Kron's battle armor hummed with barely restrained fury. The Vraxis hegemony will not accept this. We will not surrender our military superiority based on demands of prey species. Then you are free to leave the council, Vorn said quietly. But understand that doing so means forfeiting your claim to council protection, council trade networks, and council mediation. You will be on your own in a galaxy that is rapidly arming itself against species exactly like yours. The threat was clear. Adapt or be isolated. Kron looked around the chamber and saw calculation in his allies' expressions. One by one, they were realizing that the old order was dead, killed not by human weapons, but by human ideas. We will comply, Kron finally growled. Under protest? But we will not forget this betrayal. It's not betrayal, Marcus spoke for the first time since the session began. It's evolution. And for what it's worth, Battle Director, we don't want you as an enemy. We want you as a partner in building something better. Your words mean nothing, human. Then let our actions speak. Marcus pulled up a data file. This is complete technical specification for the electromagnetic pulse weapon that disabled the Krell fleet. We're making it available to the Council database immediately, free of charge or restriction. Any species can build it, improve it, defend against it. Complete transparency. Dr. Sato added her own files. And this is Project Cassandra, the virus I mentioned. We're not just revealing its existence. We're providing the code, the architecture, and the countermeasures. Yes, that means giving away our strategic advantage. But it also means no species needs to fear we'll use it, because everyone will know how to defend against it. The gesture stunned even those who had supported the humans. Giving away their most powerful weapons was either supreme confidence or supreme foolishness. Why? Quillix asked, his tentacles still with confusion. Why sacrifice your advantages? Because advantages built on secrecy aren't sustainable, General Okonkwo answered. Eventually, someone figures out your tricks, reverse engineers your technology, or develops counters. But cooperation, real cooperation based on mutual benefit, that's sustainable. That's how you build something that lasts. 3 days later, Ambassador Marcus Webb stood in the Council's Hall of Remembrance, a solemn space where names of every species lost to galactic conflicts were inscribed in crystalline monuments. He wasn't alone. Standing with him were representatives from 23 species, including, surprisingly, Battle Director Kron of the Vraxis hegemony. Why did you really do it? Kron asked quietly, his usual aggression muted in this sacred space. Why risk everything on an idealistic gamble that could have gotten your entire species exterminated? Marcus looked up at the memorial listing the Refuge Prime victims. All 5,000 names now inscribed alongside millions of others who died in conflicts throughout galactic history. Because we remembered, he said softly. Earth had a period called the World Wars. 2 global conflicts in 30 years that killed over 100 million people. We built weapons of such terrible power that we could have exterminated ourselves completely. And when we finally stopped the killing and looked at what we'd done, we had a choice. Learn from it or repeat it. He touched the crystal bearing a child's name. We learned that unchecked power inevitably leads to atrocity. That systems built on domination eventually collapse into chaos. That the only sustainable peace is one, where everyone feels secure enough to choose cooperation over conflict. When we reached the stars and saw that galactic civilization was built on the same power, hierarchies that nearly destroyed us, we had another choice. Accept it or change it. We chose change. Not because we're noble or special, but because we're terrified of what happens if we don't. Kron was quiet for a long moment. The Vraxis have a saying. The blade that cuts deepest is the one forged in the hottest fire. I thought it meant weapons. Maybe it means wisdom. Maybe it means both, Marcus replied. The question is what we do with that wisdom. 6 months later, the first joint human-alien research facility opened on a neutral station near the galactic core. The facility's mission was developing defensive technologies that any species could implement, regardless of their industrial base or economic power. The director was Dr. Amira Sato. Her deputy was a Krell engineer named Vrix, one of the prisoners from Refuge Prime who had chosen, after learning the full truth of what his species had done, to dedicate himself to ensuring such atrocities never happened again. The facility was small, experimental. and constantly struggling with coordination between species whose biology and thinking were fundamentally different. But it worked. Slowly, painfully, but it worked. And in the council chamber, where 700 species had once looked at humanity with contempt or pity, a new dynamic emerged. Not respect born of fear, though that element remained, but something deeper. Recognition that the small species who had entered the galaxy as apparent weaklings had forced everyone to confront their own assumptions about power, justice, and survival. The galaxy was changing. Not through conquest or revolution, but through the simple, terrifying realization that the old ways of maintaining order through threat and domination were no longer sustainable in a universe where the weak had learned to bite back. Humanity hadn't conquered the stars. They had done something far more dangerous. They had given everyone else the tools and the courage to stand up for themselves. And in doing so, they had awakened not monsters, but the possibility that civilization could be built on something better than fear. The real test would be whether that possibility could survive contact with reality. But for the first time in millennia, the galaxy had hoped that it might. Retry, Claude, can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.